Civil society organizations will be looking at the Finance Minister's medium-term policy statement tomorrow with keen interest. They've been lobbying Treasury over the drop in social relief of distress grant approvals, in particular by raising the means test threshold. They also argue that the 350 Rand COVID-19 SRD grant has played a critical role in providing support to some of the most vulnerable people who have not previously been eligible for income support. Well, let's discuss their views now. I'm joined by Zimbali Mncube from the Institute for Economic Justice. Zimbali, good afternoon. Welcome to today. Thank you very much for your time here on ENCA this afternoon. Just in less than 24 hours, we'll be listening to Enoch Godongwana and outlining the medium-term budget policy statement of the government. What do you expect out of it yourselves? What are the key things you want to see as priorities?
Thank you for having me on the show, Braden. So, last week we released a statement outlining 10 key priorities ahead of the MTPPS. Maybe I can just go over 5 of those. And one of the key priorities is to ensure that we reorientate the current fiscal framework to tackle unemployment, poverty, and inequality. And this can be part of a pro-employment macroeconomic framework, because currently the fiscal strategy for the past 2 years, when you look at the MTPPS, has been on narrow debt stabilization. And this has come at the expense of public services and ensuring that allocations to these grow in line with population growth, but also inflation.
So basically, sorry, before you move on, basically you're saying enough of the austerity measures, enough of budget cuts.
Yes, essentially, because these budget cuts erode the quality of public services. And this falls disproportionately on the poor, but also on women, because they undertake most of the unpaid care work at home. And so if you are not investing in healthcare, education, and care services, you are basically reproducing gender inequality, but also in the long run, you are reproducing inequality along racial class divisions, because those who can pay will then take their money to the private sector, but those who cannot pay will be stuck with the public sector or public services that cannot deliver quality education and healthcare. And then the third issue, you've touched on it already, is the improvement of the social relief of distress grant, and that has 2 components to it. There's the current underspending of the rollout of the SRD. We know that 44 billion was allocated for about 10.5 million beneficiaries, and so even at this insufficient level, the DSD is running the risk of not spending the full allocated amount of this budget, because it changed the threshold from to 350. And so as a result, we saw that the number of applications decreased from around 15 million in April to now only about under 5 million payments recently have been made. And so there's that issue, but there's also the long-term improvement of this grant and ensuring that we use it as a stepping stone towards the implementation of the universal pay.
Let's talk about the amount, just to give the people an idea. It's a stepping stone, it's an opportunity. At what level do you think should be the minimum to be considered? Because, I mean, you've got the food poverty line on the one hand, and plus you've got the lower and the upper. What are the numbers you are thinking about, you are pushing for?
Yeah. So our proposal is that basically it should, at the very least, start at 624, which is the current food poverty line. And this is an objective measure of poverty. We know that 350 is not linked to any measure of poverty that is currently used in the country. And so it does not allow people to really purchase any basic necessities or food. And we know that from the research that was done by DSD itself, most of the money that is received through this grant has been spent on food and electricity. And so that's the starting point that we've been advocating for. But then over time, we have proposed that the grant be increased to the upper bound poverty line of 1,335. But this would be once we have engaged as the different stakeholders on how we can sustainably finance this grant through progressive taxation.
Yeah, I mean, you call for a number of other measures like increased funding to the industrial policy in terms of master plans, improve processes for meaningful budget participation and transparent. But you also talk about taxes, and I just want to quickly come to that. You're saying that the recent windfall taxes, I guess, from like higher commodity prices, the mining sector has benefited there. You want them to be used in a way that will promote an equitable kind of setup, but you're also calling for the reduction, the reversal of the reduction of corporate tax.
Yes, indeed, that's correct, Braden, because in as much as we're speaking about the SRD grant, it needs to be complemented by other measures to support interventions in the economy. And we believe that taxation can play an important role in redistributing income towards the alleviation of poverty. And so when you look at the corporate income tax, the historical trends show that it has been drastically dropped from 50% to recently 27%, as you have indicated. And there hasn't been any significant job creation that has resulted as a result of this measure. In fact, the evidence that we've interrogated shows that decreasing corporate income tax does not have any significant impact on growth. However, where it has been implemented, it has worsened inequality, and so it's basically a regressive measure, and so we are calling for it to be reversed. But also we are also aware that when you look at the OECD countries, for instance, their revenue to tax to GDP levels are way above what we are currently at. We are sitting at about 24%, right? And this has been stagnant between 1995 and 2020. However, when you look at OECD countries, they are spending about 35% in terms of revenue compared to their GDP. And so South Africa really needs to step up and spend on public services.